I'm Pete Moores. I'm the course trainer for the Commercializing Innovations program here at the Singapore University for Social Sciences. And today I'm going to be talking to you about the challenges involved in financing innovations. I love working with those who are bringing something that's genuinely new to the world, to the market, a genuine innovation. So technology for me is more than just information technology. It's any product that has a technology component and requires an amount of development before it's ready to be accessed by the market and to deliver impact in the real world. I'm going to be looking at the different sources of funding that are available to a science and technology startup at the different phases of an innovation's development. I'm going to use this framework, which was developed by NASA in the 1970s, called the Technology Readiness, or TRL scale. And this was originally developed as a way of aiding better communication between those involved at both ends of the technology development process, scientists and developers, and the commercial world. Now, the scale of the TRL is broken up into 9 different levels, each relating to a stage of development of a new technology. On the left-hand side, TRLs level 1 to 3 are typically experimental research, everything up to a proof of concept prototype, which may be far from a version that will eventually be used in the world. Applied R&D is the process of refining that prototype into something that more resembles a final version and advancing the maturity of the prototype as the TRL level increases. The final stage, technology implementation, is the deployment of your innovation in the world at a size and scale fit for operation as an off-the-shelf product. Each TRL corresponds to a stage of development of the technology, and the scale fits both those who are developing hardware and software innovations. But to explore what these terms actually mean for the innovation you're working with, let's look as a general guide and illustrate the process. Let's look at what these terms mean for you, the developer of the technology or a person involved in its commercialization. Now, the TRLs start at the idea, the underpinning science that proves that this is possible. Next is the formulation of a concept, an hypothesis of an invention, and a plan of what you're going to do to evaluate that it will work. Once you have proof of concept prototype, even one that consists of nothing more than a lab-based version held together with wires, double-sided sticky tape, and a hopeful PowerPoint presentation, then you're at TRL level 3. And once your prototype has been shown to work repeatedly, albeit under laboratory or test conditions, then you can advance to TRL 4. Once you scale up the prototype into something that can be run as a trial for an eager early stage customer, then you're at TRL level 5. And continued progression of customer trials and development of the robustness of the prototype will advance you to TRL 6. A system prototype is when you get your first paying customer. So your proof that your prototype, your innovation, works in the real world for a customer. Further validation from that customer and other customers that follow is defined as TRL level 8. You've got validation that this is being used and works for customers. And when it's fully commercially available and evidence of the technology working for a customer, then you're at technology readiness level number 9. The final stage, technology implementation, is about showing that your innovation works within the commercial world and delivers impact. Now, the kicker with these is that the amount of funding that's typically available across each of these 3 stages of technology development is not uniform. Typically, governments invest in experimental research, and it's undertaken in the knowledge base of innovative companies, startups, universities, and developers. Funding is limited and tied to the achievement of the funder's objectives. Commercial funding includes sales from customers, but also from investors willing to take on that higher risk of funding a technology when it's less than fully proven. And here, the funding, as you can see, is plentiful. In the middle of these 2 large sources of funding is the comparative minnow of translational funding, designed to operate in this gap between what governments will invest in, high risk, underpinning research with few expectations of returns, and what the commercial world will invest in, lower risk, more mature technology with the potential for large commercial returns. And this is what's known as the Valley of Death. And sadly, this is where many technology startups go to die. It's virtually unheard of for there to be one funder that can carry you all the way through from your early stage idea all the way through into successful innovation working in the market. It's more likely you'll have to develop a complex capital strategy involving securing funding from different types of funder at different stages of your innovation's development. This is my guide to navigating the landscape of different types of funding that are out there in order to secure the commercial success of your innovation. Let's start with the most well-known, bootstrapping, financing of your innovation through your personal investments and those from what we call FFF, friends, family, and fools. The ideal sources of funding for your business are ones that take away very little from you in terms of equity. And grant funding ticks that box, being a non-dilutive source of funding. But this funding is competitive and it addresses the objectives of the funders. But it does have the advantage that there's nothing to be repaid. I always recommend that innovators look at sources of grant funding available in their region. First of all, this type of non-dilutive funding where equity in your company is not exchanged for the funding you're receiving is the ideal first step. The key to securing grant funding is to configure your proposal in a way that clearly demonstrates how it achieves the objectives of the particular funder. From the stage of proof of concept prototype onwards, you've got access to a number of accelerators, which can sometimes provide funding, but more importantly, provide the support to advance your idea into a proposition that can attract the interest of risk-taking investors and customers. A source of funding which is becoming increasingly important for B2C businesses are crowdfunding. And there are two very different types of crowdfunding and two distinctive times to use them in an innovation's lifecycle. The first is product-based, which generally occurs here between TRL 3 and 4. This is where you've got a great idea that appeals to lots of customers, and they are investing small amounts of funding to secure the development or to purchase an early stage prototype version of your technology at a discounted price. The second type of crowdfunding is equity-based, which is good for those who have a great business of relevance to lots of customers, because this time they're not buying into receiving an early stage version of the product, they'll be evaluating your public plans for the growth of your business. Corporate financing is suitable for some ventures when an innovation is aligned with the direct needs of a corporation. Business angels provide personal capital, expert support, and resources to grow a business that aligns with areas of their personal interest and experience. And often their access to networks and distribution channels are as important as the money that they're providing. The next stage, which is typically used by more mature businesses, is debt financing. Now, currently, banks are reluctant to lend to innovative ventures as they typically, at an early stage, lack the collateral to secure the loan, although there are developments in this area. As the technology develops and evidence of market need becomes clearer, this type of funding is also non-dilutive. And the final source of funding, venture capital, should really be the last port of call for those businesses that have a proven offer in the market, a rapidly filling order book, and impressive growth. VC funding is there for one purpose only, and the model is very rigid. It's there to scale a successful, high-performing business. However, many venture capital firms will invest at an earlier stage, but their model of looking for purely financial and very large financial returns in a short time frame make it a high-risk type of funding to get involved in until the last possible moment. The sources of funding that are available for your innovation will vary dramatically depending on whereabouts in the world you are. So this is intended as a rough guide to help you consider the different stages that can typically be involved in growing your innovation and growing your startup company. You can see by the size and scale of the arrows, there is more funding available at both ends of the technology readiness level scale, both sides of the valley of death. This illustrative map of the sources of funding available for an innovation illustrates the concept of the valley of death, where there is this lack of funding in the middle of the valley of death to progress your idea from early stage prototype into something that can be readily adopted by the commercial world and to have developed real world impact for the innovation. A failure to secure market interest, commercial funding, is the most common cause of technology company failure. They simply cannot secure the funding they need before the business runs out of money. And yes, this means, sadly, that 9 out of 10 early stage technology businesses end up failing. And this does mean they go out of business, but also it means the dreams that those founders had for their technology startup are not fulfilled. The backers to date not seeing their money again. And most importantly of all, that good science has not fulfilled its potential in solving the problems in the world. This lack of funding shows why having the right fundraising strategy is key to successfully growing an innovative business and commercializing an innovation for real world impact. Your safe passage to the commercial side of the valley of death depends on your ability to find the right funding and the right sources of investment. Hi, I'm Pete Moores, Chief Problem Solver here at PBM Consulting. This is my guide to navigating the landscape of different types of funding that are out there in order to secure the commercial success of your innovation. Let's start with the most well-known, bootstrapping, financing of your innovation through your personal investments and those from what we call FFF, friends, family, and fools. I always recommend that innovators look at sources of grant funding available in their region. First of all, this type of non-dilutive funding, where equity in your company is not exchanged for the funding you're receiving, is the ideal first step. The key to securing grant funding is to configure your proposal in a way that clearly demonstrates how it achieves the objectives of the particular funder. From the stage of proof of concept prototype onwards, you've got access to a number of accelerators, which can sometimes provide funding, but more importantly, provide the support to advance your idea into a proposition that can attract the interest of risk-taking investors and customers. A source of funding which is becoming increasingly important for B2C businesses are crowdfunding. And there are two very different types of crowdfunding and two distinctive times to use them in an innovation's lifecycle. The first is product-based, which generally occurs here between TRL 3 and 4. This is where you've got a great idea that appeals to lots of customers, and they are investing small amounts of funding to secure the development or to purchase an early stage prototype version of your technology at a discounted price. The second type of crowdfunding is equity-based, which is good for those who have a great business of relevance to lots of customers, because this time they're not buying into receiving an early stage version of the product, they'll be evaluating your public plans for the growth of your business. Corporate financing is suitable for some ventures when an innovation is aligned with the direct needs of a corporation. Business angels provide personal capital, expert support, and resources to grow a business that aligns with areas of their personal interest and experience. And often their access to networks and distribution channels are as important as the money that they're providing. The next stage, which is typically used by more mature businesses, is debt financing. Now, currently, banks are reluctant to lend to innovative ventures as they typically, at an early stage, lack the collateral to secure the loan, although there are developments in this area. As the technology develops and evidence of market need becomes clearer, this type of funding is also non-dilutive. And the final source of funding, venture capital, should really be the last port of call for those businesses that have a proven offer in the market, a rapidly filling order book, and impressive growth. VC funding is there for one purpose only, and the model is very rigid. It's there to scale a successful, high-performing business. However, many venture capital firms will invest at an earlier stage, but their model of looking for purely financial and very large financial returns in a short time frame make it a high-risk type of funding to get involved in until the last possible moment. The sources of funding that are available for your innovation will vary dramatically depending on whereabouts in the world you are. So this is intended as a rough guide to help you consider the different stages that can typically be involved in growing your innovation and growing your startup company. You can see by the size and scale of the arrows, there is more funding available at both ends of the technology readiness level scale, both sides of the valley of death. This is why I founded PBM Consulting, to help more science and technology companies make their impact in the world. This lack of funding shows why having the right fundraising strategy is key to successfully growing an innovative business. To provide help with this, my Driven program helps founders to develop a winning fundraising strategy for their company. To find out more, comment Driven on this post, visit this link, or scan this QR code